Hello, welcome to La Excellence. In our recap program, we are discussing monthly current affairs videos. In this video, let us discuss April 2021 related current issues. PDF of this video is available in the description. If you want to write test series based on the monthly current affairs videos, you can join through the link mentioned in the description. First, let us start with polity. First issue is Doctrine of Colorable Legislation. Recently, passage of 3 agricultural bills by the Parliament. That act is criticized as Doctrine of Colorable Legislation. That means what the legislature cannot do directly, it can't do indirectly. But it has tried to pass the agricultural bills in the name of interstate trade and other things. That means whatever legislature cannot do directly, it cannot do indirectly, but this principle has been violated. That is known as colorable legislation. And constitutionally, under Article 246, center and states, they divide the powers based on 3 lists. One is union list, state list, third is concurrent list. And each legislative house has limitations. State cannot pass the issues in union list. And union, that is center, cannot pass the laws in union under normal circumstances. In this context, in R.S. Joshi versus Ajit Mills case, Supreme Court has observed that colorable exercise of the legislation is fraud on the Constitution. Next issue is e-visa. Recently, Ministry of Home Affairs has restored the electronic visa facility for 4 categories of persons. 1. Business. 2. Those who are attending medical conferences and for medical reasons and medical attendants. E-visa means a foreigner need not apply for visa, need not get the visa first and then come to India. Can apply online and come to India and get e-visa. That facility is known as e-visa facility. It saves time and effort. So there are 5 categories of persons who will get e-visa under normal circumstances. Tourists, business, conference, medical and medical attendants. As of now, for these 4 categories, e-visa facility has been restored. For tourist category, it has not been restored yet. Why there is need for restoration? Because of COVID pandemic, all the e-visas were cancelled. Now we are restoring them. Next is OCI card holder. This is also related to citizenship. Ministry of Home Affairs has clarified that overseas citizen of India will not be required to register for a fresh OCI card every time a new passport is issued in their name. Only when the person gets 20 years, age of 20 years, then facial features etc. changes. That's why a OCI person needs to get new card after reaching 20 years of age. That is the only condition. This requirement of getting fresh OCI card every time the passport is renewed is done away with. OCI, Overseas Citizen of India scheme, was introduced in the year 2005 under Citizenship Act 1955. On January 2015, earlier there were 2 categories. One is person of Indian origin, 2 OCI. These 2 categories were merged into only one category, that is OCI. They have almost all rights similar to NRIs except a few rights related to acquisition of agricultural land, voting rights, etc. Next issue is RIIN, Register of Indigenous Inhabitants of Nagaland. Recently, Nagaland's apex body, tribal apex body, has requested and cautioned the government of Nagaland to avoid the exclusionary errors. So there is a process called NRC, National Registry of Citizens, which is followed in Assam to identify who are the locals, who are foreigners. So similar initiative in Nagaland is known as RIIN. RIIN will be prepared after an exhaustive survey with the help of village-wise and ward-wise list. So why is this required? Nagaland also has seen huge influx of refugees and illegal migrants. That's why they want to restore the land rights and other rights to the locals. In that context, to restore the indigenous people's rights, this initiative has been taken up. But if we look at the experience of NRC has led to exclusion of 19 lakh people. We don't know whether all of them are foreigners or not, but foreigner tribunals have declared that these are all illegal migrants. In this context, in general, according to Foreigners Act, they need to be deported. So where should they be deported? That is the end question which we don't have the answer. In this context, no fresh indigenous inhabitant certificates will be issued. Only for the newborn children, along with the birth certificates, indigenous inhabitant certificate will be provided, and it will be monitored by the state government with the designated nodal officers. Next issue is repromulgation of ordinance. Recently, National Capital Region and adjoining areas, for that, Commission for Air Quality Management, this was passed as an ordinance. It was repromulgated as an ordinance. In that context, ordinance, repromulgation of ordinance, these two words are in use. Ordinance means it is called as executive legislation. When the legislature is not in the house, in case of exigencies, executive has the right to pass the laws through the executive resolution. In case of center, by the President of India. In case of state, by the Governor of the state. Under Article 123, President of India has the power to authorize the promulgation of ordinance. Under Article 213, Governor of the state has the right to pass the ordinances. They have the same force as like the Act of Parliament or state legislature. In that context, passing it frequently every time, in general, ordinance has maximum time period of 6 months or 6 weeks. But after the expiry of ordinance, without introducing it or with introducing it in the parliament, if the executive repromulgates the ordinance, it is considered as cheat on the constitution. In R.C. Cooper case, D.C. Wadhwa case, recent Krishna Kumar Singh case, in all these cases, Supreme Court has said that repromulgation of ordinance is violation of separation of power. It is given only as an emergency power, not as a concurrent power to make the laws by the executive. Next issue is appointment of ad hoc judges. Under Article 224A, ad hoc judges can be appointed. Under the Constitution, ad hoc judges means additional judges in case of any vacancies, etc. to reduce the delays in justice. Chief Justice of Supreme Court can appoint the ad hoc judges of Supreme Court. Chief Justice of High Court can appoint the ad hoc judges to High Courts. So in this context, they are not deemed to be as the judge of Supreme Court or High Court, but they have same allowances, emoluments similar to the judges, and these are decided by the President of India. President of India decides the allowances and emoluments, and these are for a temporary period only. Next issue is parliamentary committees and their functioning. Parliamentary committees are not mentioned in the Constitution. They are implemented by convention. They are the instruments of legislature to seek accountability from the executive. Accountability is their major function. Parliamentary committees, there are multiple types of parliamentary committees. They are broadly divided into standing committees and ad hoc committees. Standing committees are of various types: financial committees, departmental standing committees, committees of inquiry, etc. Ad hoc committees are appointed only temporarily in case of any specific requirement. But standing committees, they are continuous committees. They have specific tenure. Next, let us discuss geography-related aspects. First one is Chenab Bridge. Recently, Indian Railways has completed building an steel arch bridge on Chenab River across a deep gorge. And this was approved in the year 2002. It was declared as a national project, and this was completed recently. The steel and concrete bridge, it connects Kashmir Valley to the rest of the world. It is built across Chenab River. It is considered one of the engineering challenges faced by Indian Railways and others in the recent history. Chenab Bridge, very important. Chenab is the tributary of River Indus. In the last month's current affairs, we have discussed about Indus Water Treaty. Try to recollect that once. Next issue is Chilka Lake dolphins. Irrawaddy dolphins are found in Chilka Lake. Recent census or dolphin census by Odisha has revealed that number of Irrawaddy dolphins in Chilka Lake improved. It is because of the initiatives taken at the local level with the help of locals. Now let us briefly understand about Irrawaddy dolphins. Irrawaddy dolphins are found in the coastal areas in South and Southeast Asia, majorly in three rivers. One is Irrawaddy of Myanmar, two Makham in Indonesia, and Mekong River. Mekong River Irrawaddy dolphins, they have huge scale habitat and these are in endangered list. In CITES, it is placed in Appendix 1. In CMS, that is known as Bonn Convention, it is placed in Appendix 1. In Wildlife Protection Act, it is placed in Schedule 1. That means sale of Irrawaddy dolphins is banned. Now, what is the significance of Chilka Lake? This is important. Chilka Lake is located in the eastern coast. It's a lagoon lake. It is second largest lagoon. It's the Asia's largest and world's second largest lagoon. It is in the east coast of Odisha. It's spread over 3 districts of Odisha. It is the largest wintering ground for migratory birds in the Indian subcontinent. In 1991, Chilka Lake is declared as India's first Ramsar site. And major attraction of Chilka is Irrawaddy dolphins and near the Satpada Island. A large Nalbana island covering 16 square kilometers in the lagoon is declared as bird sanctuary, Nalbana Bird Sanctuary, and Kalijai Temple is located on the island in the Chilka Lake region. These are the significant points about it. Chilka Lake is a lagoon which is separated by a small sand strip from Bay of Bengal. Next issue is attack on Iranian ships in the Red Sea region. Red Sea and Persian Gulf regions both are in news recently. Now first let us understand the map pointing related issues with regard to Red Sea. Red Sea connects Mediterranean Sea and Arabian Sea. From Mediterranean Sea, Red Sea is connected through Suez Canal. We have discussed about Suez Canal. Last month Suez Canal blockade has happened. In that context, Suez Canal entry point, as Port said, we discussed that. Now, Mediterranean Sea and Red Sea are connected. In between we have Sinai Peninsula. Sinai Peninsula belongs to Egypt. And then as we move on in this direction, we have Farazan Islands and then the Strait of Bab el-Mandeb, very, very important, Bab el-Mandeb Strait. It connects Red Sea and Gulf of Aden. Through Gulf of Aden, we move into Arabian Sea. Now, with regard to Persian Gulf, we have Iraq, Iran, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, and then this Oman. So this is a small peninsula known as Musandam Peninsula belongs to Oman. So these are the countries surrounding Persian Gulf. In the Persian Gulf region, Strait of Hormuz, it connects Persian Gulf and Gulf of Oman. And there is a strategic island belonging to Iran. That island is known as Kashem Island. This is very near to Strait of Hormuz. Bandar Abbas, the major port of Iran, is located near Strait of Hormuz. And then we have Farzad gas fields, very, very important. Persian Gulf region has Farzad gas fields. Biggest gas field in Persian Gulf is known as North gas reserve belonging to Qatar. That is why in the Persian Gulf region, Qatar is the major natural gas exporting country. North Field is a huge natural gas reserve. Next is Ukraine-Russia issue. Tensions between Ukraine and Russia are growing. In this context, what is the geographical location of these two? Let us try to understand. Where the conflict is, let us try to understand. This is the Black Sea region. East side of Ukraine, which is neighboring Russia. This part is held by the separatists and this peninsula is held by Russia. In 2014, Russia has held referendum over there. It is said that people have voted to stay in Russia. But Ukraine says that this referendum is manipulated. That is why many of the Western countries, they don't recognize this and they recognize Crimea as part of Ukraine. This is the Black Sea region. Around the Black Sea region, we have Georgia, Turkey, Bulgaria, Romania, Moldova, Ukraine, and Russia. These are the countries surrounding Black Sea region. Within Black Sea region, Crimea is important for Russia for this port known as Sebastopol or Sevastopol. And Sea of Azov and Black Sea, these two are connected by Kerch Strait, very very important, Kerch Strait. Russia has built a bridge known as Crimean Bridge. Crimean Bridge connecting Russia and Crimean Peninsula. Black Sea and Sea of Azov are connected by Kerch Strait. Sevastopol is the all-weather port. Russia has ports on the north side, but these are frozen during the winters. That is why Russia requires all-weather port, and this is one of the ports. As Ukraine wants to join in NATO, this will obstruct the strategic interest of Russia. That is why Russia is doing this. But European countries and Western countries are not recognizing this particular thing. They have imposed sanctions on Russia. They removed Russia from G8 grouping, earlier G8 grouping. Now they are meeting only in form of G7. Next, let us discuss Indian society and social issues. First issue is World Population Report 2021. Recently, United Nations Population Fund UNPF, this has released annual report known as World Population Report 2021. Title of this report is My Body is My Own. This is the first time UN body has reported on the bodily autonomy. That means every individual has the agency to make the choice about our own body without fear of violence, having someone to decide on what is good for you. Now let us briefly understand about United Nations Population Report UNPF. UNPF is a subsidiary organ of United Nations General Assembly, and it works as a sexual and reproductive health agency. UN Economic and Social Council, it establishes the mandate for United Nations Population Fund Agency. Now this is established as a trust in 1967, and funds are not given from UN budget. All the funds to UN Population Fund are through the voluntary contributions only. This UNPFA works directly to tackle sustainable development goals on health, education and gender equality. Next issue is Manas app. Recently, our Principal of Scientific Advisor, Government to India, has launched Manas app to promote the mental well-being of citizens across all age groups. Manas full form is Mental Health and Normalcy Augmentation System. It integrates health and wellness efforts of various ministries, and it helps in developing research tools. So according to National Mental Health Survey, 13% of the mental health illness, 13% of the population, they have one or other mental health issues. 28% of overall global suicides happen in India. 49% only has the access to health facilities. In this context, awareness about mental health is less. Insurance for mental health care is very, very less. In this context, such apps, such initiatives are necessary. Next issue is Gender Samvad. Samvad means discussion. Recently, our Ministry of Rural Development has launched a platform called as Gender Samvad. This Gender Samvad is a joint initiative under Deen Dayal Antyodaya Yojana National Rural Livelihoods Mission NRLM. Under NRLM, self-help groups SSGs, these are promoted. So in this Gender Samvad, SHG groups and other NGOs, they participate on the issues related to women. For example, on how to improve the women's agency to take their own decisions, and in sharing the international experiences of successful gender interventions, in unpacking the implementation barriers of gender mainstreaming. These will be discussed as a bi-monthly webinars. This is known as Gender Samvad. Next issue is Sarthak Initiative. Recently, Education Ministry has released an indicative and suggestive plan for school education, which is known as Sarthak. See, to know what is the quality and how much we have achieved, we need to have certain targets, as are no? So in that context, this framework known as Students and Teachers Holistic Advancement through Quality Education known as Sarthak, this initiative was launched. It is according to the National Education Policy 2020. Its aim is to provide all-round development for the students at the primary and the secondary level. It establishes the safe, secure, inclusive and conducive learning environment. According to this, it delineates certain goals and outcomes and the time frames. This is the goal. This is the time frame by which we should complete. So that is how the Sarthak initiative sets the timelines and the targets to improve the quality of education. Next issue is Men and Women in India report. Recently, National Statistics Office has released Men and Women report in India, and the important points of this report include India's projected population in 2020-21 is 136 crore. Out of them, 48% are female, and it is projected that sex ratio is likely to increase. Sex ratio at birth is going to increase. Women's mean age of marriage is going to be increased. IMR, MMR decrease. Total fertility rate is going to be at 2.3% in the rural areas, 1.7% in urban areas. Literacy levels in both genders is going to increase. These are some of the important points in the Women and Men India report of NSO. Next, let us discuss security issues. First one is Joint Logistics Node. Recently, our Chief of Defence Staff, who is the head of Department of Military Affairs under Ministry of Defence, has operationalized the third logistics node in Mumbai. Other two joint logistics nodes include Guwahati and Port Blair. Joint logistic node means it provides integrated logistics to the armed forces. That means small arms, ammunition, rations, fuel, general stores, civil hired transport, aviation, clothing, etc., etc. They are purchased at different places from different procurement means. Instead, what if we procure all of them at once, and these joint logistics nodes supply them to every other store of the military, so that there it saves the manpower, it saves the economy, and it provides for financial savings. That is why joint logistic nodes are introduced by the armed forces, and it is operationalized by Chief of Defence Staff. This provides jointness. Similarly, other initiatives to promote jointness include Integrated Theatre Command, which are known as Integrated Battle Groups. Integrated Theatre Commands means all the different segments of the army will be trained together, and they will be gathered in case of any conflict, any event within few hours. Next issue is Red Corridor of India. Red Corridor is the region which is affected by the Naxal related activities. From Tamil Nadu to Bihar, we have Naxal affected areas in 9 states, nearly 90 districts. This is known as left-wing extremism. It is recognized as one of the serious threats to the India's internal security. India's national security Red Corridor is a term which is used in relation to Naxal affected areas. In 1967, this Naxalism as a movement started with the Naxalbari event, then that quickly spread in the areas, especially in the mineral belt of India. Next issue is Exercise Varuna. Recently, 19th edition of Indian and French Navy bilateral exercise Varuna 2021 was conducted in the Arabian Sea. Indian Navy took part in the French-led Navy exercise known as La Pérouse, with the navies of USA, Australia, Japan in the Indian Ocean region. Indian and France, they both conduct joint maritime exercises since 1993. These exercises have been called as Varuna exercises. In 2021, along with India and France, UAE also participated as an observer country. It's a joint exercise which was conducted recently in the Arabian Sea region. In this context, we have to understand various other Indian bilateral maritime exercises. For example, SLINEX is between India and Sri Lanka. Zymex, India, Japan. Like that, go through this list. This is only related to maritime exercises. Next, let us understand international relations related current affairs. First one is BIMSTEC meet. Recently, External Affairs Minister has participated in the 17th BIMSTEC meeting. This is the virtual meeting chaired by Sri Lanka. What are the objectives of BIMSTEC and why this was formed? BIMSTEC full form is Bay of Bengal Initiative for Multi-Sectoral Technical and Economic Cooperation. There are 7 member countries. This is seen as an alternative to SAARC grouping. SAARC, South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation. SAARC is a grouping of 8 countries. BIMSTEC is a grouping of 7 member countries including India, Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Myanmar and Thailand. First BIMSTEC summit was held in Thailand. Under Bangkok Declaration, this BIMSTEC as a grouping was found in 1997. BIMSTEC accounts for 22% of total world's population, combined GDP of 2.7 trillion. 1/4 of the world's trade across through the Bay of Bengal region. So if you observe, these are all the countries surrounding the Bay of Bengal. There are 6 focus areas, very, very important. SAARC is a general grouping. BIMSTEC is a focused group. There are 6 focus areas: trade, technology, energy, transport, tourism and fisheries. So the mandate is limited for this. The objectives of BIMSTEC grouping is to create the enabling environment for rapid economic development in the region, to encourage the spirit of equality partnership, to promote collaboration in these 6 areas, to accelerate support in the field of education, science, technology, etc. BIMSTEC has other countries of SAARC grouping except Afghanistan and Pakistan. That is why, and Myanmar and Thailand, these 2 are not part of SAARC grouping. Others are part of SAARC grouping. Now that is why this grouping is seen as alternative to SAARC grouping. Next issue is India's EEZ and USA's claim of freedom of navigation. Recently, US patrolling ship has entered into India's exclusive zone without informing us. So India says that according to EEZ Act of India, you can come into our exclusive economic zone, but you have to give prior information. This is according to international law. But USA says that we don't have such claim. We are not part of UNCLOS, United Nations Convention on Law of Sea. USA did not sign and ratify this convention. India is party of this convention. So USA says, no, we have the freedom of navigation of operation. So USA Navy conducts the freedom of navigation of operations even in the coastal areas, even in their exclusive territories. And USA says, we have the freedom of navigation, we did not take your permission. Recently this has created little tensions, but slowly we know strategically both countries are important, so that didn't become a bigger issue. But conceptually, what is EEZ? From the baseline, 200 nautical miles region is known as exclusive economic zone, territorial sea 12 nautical miles, contiguous zone 24 nautical miles. After 200 nautical miles, it is considered as high seas area. In the exclusive economic zone, other country ships they can pass, but exclusive economic rights are there with that country only. Territorial sea, full controls and all the things are with the coastal country. Next issue is rules on accepting foreign aid. Recently, during the second COVID wave, we have accepted the foreign aid after the gap of 17 years. India accepted foreign aid in many cases. Uttarakasi earthquakes, Lathur earthquake, Gujarat earthquake, cyclones, etc. But during 2004 tsunami, at the time our Prime Minister has said that we have domestic capabilities, so we don't need the foreign aid. From then onwards, we stopped accepting foreign aid. That's a foreign policy, because if we accept foreign aid from one country and if we don't from other country, it causes the conflict. That is why we thought it's better to not to take. But this is the time of crisis, that's why we accepted the foreign aid. But there are no legal limitations on accepting foreign aid. Please understand this. There are no legal barriers, there are no specific rules. We are following it as a part of our foreign policy, that's it. Next issue is Operation Theman. Recently, our Indian Navy has dispatched Deep Submergence Rescue Vessel, very important, DSRV, Deep Submergence Rescue Vessel, from Visakhapatnam in support of Indonesian Navy. Indonesia's submarine went missing. That's why in that rescue operation, to aid in that rescue operation, we have sent DSRV, Deep Submarine Launch Vehicle. Theman means friend. Friend. It's as a helping hand we have sent this friend, Theman. But all these crew in the submarine, they died. Submarine, because of some accident, it sunk, and then all the people, all the crew who were there inside the submarine, they all died. Next issue is Project Dantak. Very, very important recently. Project Dantak, which is one of the oldest projects under Border Roads Organization, commemorated its Diamond Jubilee in Bhutan. What is Project Dantak? In 1961, Project Dantak was launched. It was based on the agreement between King of Bhutan and at the time Prime Minister of India. Dantak is to construct the motorable roads in Bhutan. We know Bhutan is a mountainous country. To construct roads there, we started this Project Dantak. There is a treaty known as Indo-Bhutan Treaty of Peace and Friendship. According to this treaty, India and Bhutan, we have close relationship. In 2007, this treaty was renegotiated. And according to this treaty, revised treaty, it encouraged Bhutan's sovereignty and abolished the need for taking India's guidance in case of any foreign policy decisions. That means Bhutan can have its own independent foreign policy. Earlier, according to this treaty, Bhutan was represented in the international forum by the Indian representatives. But now it can have its own representatives, it can have its own foreign policy. Project Dantak is to construct motorable roads in Bhutan. It is by Border Roads Organization, important, BRO. Let us briefly discuss about what this Border Roads Organization is, because recently it is in news because of other issues also. For example, Darul Shayok Beg Daulat Beg Oldie Road. Likewise, there are other issues in which this is part. BRO, it was raised in the year 1960 to develop for the speedy development and coordination of roads in north and northeastern border regions. This is for border regions only. It works under administrative control of Ministry of Defence. See, roads means we have Ministry of Road Transport. But this one, BRO, Border Roads Organization, this works under the administrative control of Ministry of Defence. And it is diversified into various construction projects comprising airfields, building projects, defence works, tunnelling, etc., etc. Some of the achievements of BRO include Atal Tunnel, very, very important, Atal Tunnel. It is located in the Himachal Pradesh Rohtang Pass. It connects Solang Valley near Manali to Lahul and Spiti districts, and it provides all-weather road facility to Ladakh region from Himachal Pradesh. Then Nechipu Tunnel. Recently foundation stone was laid. This is in the Arunachal Pradesh. Boporozio Bridge. This is built over the Subarnasri River in Arunachal Pradesh. Kosowal Bridge. It is over the Ravi River. It connects the Kosowal enclave in Punjab along the Indo-Pakistan border to the rest of the country. Darul Shayok Daulat Beg Oldie. This is in news because of LAC conflict, yes or no? It connects Leh via the Darbuk and Shayok in the Shayok River Valley with the Daulat Beg Oldie Road near the northernmost border post. Barsi Bridge. It is the longest bridge on the Manali-Leh highway. It is built on Bagga River and it joins Chandra River and in the Lahul to the Chenab River in Jammu and Kashmir. Barsi Bridge. Next issue is Organization for Prohibition of Chemical Weapons. Recently, our CAG is selected as external auditor to this international organization known as Organization for Prohibition of Chemical Weapons. His term will be 3 years. Now let's discuss what is this OPCW and what are the functions of it. OPCW is an international organization and it is implementation body of Chemical Weapons Convention. This convention came into force in 1997. India is part of this. This convention's objective is to achieve the vision of chemical weapon-free world. Powers of this Organization for Prohibition of Chemical Weapons include: it authorizes to perform the inspection to verify the signatory countries. There are 193 member countries including India. Its headquarters is located in The Hague, Netherlands. Significance of this is in 2013, this Organization for Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, it was awarded with the Nobel Peace Prize. It is not an UN organization, but in 2001, relationship agreement between OPCW and UN was signed. So OPCW reports and other activities will be reported to the UN Office, UN Secretary General, but it is not directly under United Nations. It is under Chemical Weapons Convention. The last issue is Human Rights Watch. Recently, Human Rights Watch has said that Israel is committing crime of apartheid to maintain Jewish domination over the Palestinians and its own Arab population. In Israel, Arab population is there. So this Human Rights Watch is an NGO, USA-based NGO. Recently, there's a war between Israel and Palestine. So in the next month's current affairs, we will discuss that. These are the part 1 issues. Thank you very much. All the very best.